Welcome, 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 ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between. Jack's got a sports show, and you were tuning in to that very sports show, the sports show that has incredibly bad timing. What do I mean by that? Well, Tuesday I put up an episode talking about this past week, talking about some coaching I'd be looking out for. And then as soon as I stop recording, as soon as I put it into Spotify for podcasters to put it out on all the platforms I can, as soon as I go to upload it on YouTube, boom, Titans fire Mike Vrabel. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that a little bit. But that and then this morning I released a video, and thank God I released the video this morning, where I was talking about possible coaching hires that we're going to place Nick Saban, which again we'll talk about in a second. But possible coaching hires, ranking them from like 6 to 1 or 5 to 1, however many I had, least likely to most likely. Put out that video like 1 or 2 hours later, bam, Kalen DeBoer hired as Alabama head coach. Which again, we'll talk about it in a second. But how you doing? How's your week been? How's it been since I saw you on Tuesday? If you didn't see the tweet, if you didn't see my TikTok, I like to post the prediction episodes on Thursdays. But to explain it more, I got up yesterday and I was pretty dizzy. I was pretty dizzy. Everything felt airy. And then I took my lady to work and I was feeling better. And then I got back home and I felt the same. I was like, I would reach all the way above my head and like focus on something. And then when I look back down, my balance would be a little thrown off. Same thing if I like reach for something on the ground and everything. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good. And it was all like head stuff, which makes me nervous because I've been dealing with head stuff for a while now. But I think it was because I was not hydrated enough. I looked I looked it up. You're not supposed to do that. Don't do that. Make sure you call your doctor. But I tried to call my doctor to set up an appointment, but apparently the entire office, from what this lady told me, the entire office is out with COVID and flu. So they don't have any appointments available for a while. Of course, I don't have health insurance, so a $1,500 ER visit is not in the cards. And so yeah, I was just kind of like sitting there and I had to look it up and they said it could be caused from dehydration. I hope it was just that. Like I said, I've been dealing with head stuff for a while now, but that's an entire thing. That's an entire fight that I'm going to be fighting for a while until I figure out what's going on. And I'm just kind of hoping that it's not real serious. But that's a pretty heavy way to start the show, but that's why there was no episode yesterday. I basically just in the videos I put out on Twitter and the video I put out on TikTok, I pretty much said, "Hey, I'm not feeling good. That's why there's not a podcast out." But I do explain on the podcast because I know a lot of people don't listen to it, and the people who do check it out, or the people that want to check it out, don't follow me anywhere else. Or you're probably coming from there, and this was probably useless. But today's show, on today's show, we're going to talk about some coaching changes that happened between Tuesday or on Tuesday and today. And then we'll predict the wildcard weekend. If you want an entire playoff bracket, I did an entire playoff bracket. That video will be coming out tomorrow on TikTok. I did an entire playoff bracket predicting each matchup as I saw the entire playoffs unfolding. But on the podcast, I'll be going week to week, wild card to divisional to championship to Super Bowl. So, all of that being said, sit down. If you're not sitting down, cleaning the house, playing this background noise, if you're at work, I feel you. I listen to all my podcasts at work. Let's get right into it. So, the first coaching I want to talk about is the couple that also, Bill Belichick retired in between Tuesday and Friday, didn't they? I believe Bill Belichick retired or whatever. So we'll talk about those three, or we'll save it. Let's talk about Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is stepping down as the Seattle Seahawks head coach. Now, he's not fully stepping away from the team. He's stepping down to a team advisory role, whatever the hell that means. And this is a shock. I think this is more of a shock than Nick Sable and Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick. Some big names stepping down this past week. But this comes as a shock. It seems like the Seahawks were building at least the essence of the Legion of Boom that they had in the early years of the 2010s, in the early years of Pete Carroll's Seattle Seahawks reign. And I don't get why they would fire him. I mean, that team still needs a lot. Let's not act like they're Super Bowl contenders right now. They missed the playoffs this year. They need someone to replace Geno. I like Geno. I loved the story last year, but I think we all knew Geno's a career backup. Like Geno can step in, be great for a couple games, and he had the magical run where it's like, oh my God, Geno Smith is a good quarterback again, or Geno Smith is a great quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's an okay quarterback, and I think maybe the best you could say is Geno Smith upgraded from a career backup to now a bridge quarterback. So stepping away from the, you know, Ryan Fitzpatrick's and the, Josh McCowns and, those guys that are going to bounce around teams being a solid backup, the Tyrod Taylors, those guys. And he kind of upgraded to the, you know, Kirk Cousins and, whatever, whatever. I don't know. You could put Ryan Tannehill in that category. You could put maybe like Case Keenum. Case Keenum is a career backup, but Case Keenum has been used as a bridge quarterback a couple times. Teddy Bridgewater, I feel like, is a bridge quarterback. Those guys, maybe he upgraded from, like I said, a career backup to a bridge quarterback, but he wasn't anything special. So, and the Seahawks have kind of put themselves in a bad spot. I mean, they have a shot at guys like Cameron Ward, and now with Michael Penix Jr. not having a great day against the Michigan Wolverines in the national championship, his stock is going to drop. So you may get, you may have the possibility of getting your hands on a Michael Penix Jr. Maybe later, say in the second round, you get like a Leonard Taylor III, which I think originally I had Leonard Taylor III going, like late teens, early 20s. But the more I look at it, the more I realize he's more of a second round guy. But that'll help. That will be a scary. By the way, him next to Leonard, it's not Leonard Floor, Leonard Williams on that Seattle defensive line, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. And if you can get a guy like Cam Ward and get a guy who can develop him, if you can get a guy like MPJ and get a guy to develop him, especially MPJ, staying in Washington, that immediately brings in a lot of fans. Seattle could be a pretty good team depending on who they hire. But this isn't about who Seattle's going to draft. This is about Pete Carroll. Maybe Pete Carroll was sick of it. That's the only, because they didn't fire him. This was like a mutual agreement kind of thing because Pete Carroll's just stepping down and into a lesser role in the team. I'm interested to see who they're going to hire. And the question now turns to, is Pete Carroll a Hall of Fame head coach? 2 Super Bowl appearances, several NFC titles, NFC West titles. Not a great record. I mean, when he had Russ, he had what? I think one season 500. One season that was 500, and then they had, I believe, a losing season when Russ was hurt most of the season, and then Geno came in and they had a winning season. So great record, Super Bowl ring. 13 years as an NFL head coach, a little bit before he went to USC as well. I don't think he had that much success, but I believe he was like a Jets head coach or something. I know he was a head coach before he went to USC, but is Pete Carroll Hall of Fame head coach? I think it's a conversation. I don't think it's an immediate yes, but I also think it's an immediate no. It's an interesting conversation to have, but this is too much spent on Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll did great things for Seattle. He's the best coach Seattle's ever had, and I think that you can't deny that. So, at the very least, Seattle Ring of Honor. Next, we'll talk about Nick Saban last. Let's talk about Mike Vrabel. Now, I've made a couple of videos about this, about Mike Vrabel being fired in Tennessee. And the more I see about it, the more news that comes out that he wasn't really gelling with Rand Carthen. Management was really not liking him towards the end, especially Amy Adams Strunk, the Tennessee Titans owner, the daughter of Bud Adams, the guy who founded the Houston Oilers. She would constantly roll her eyes at decisions he was making. Mike Vrabel's input, even though it was the vibe that he was going to be able to get more control over player personnel, his input was kind of shook off and laughed off. And that's the vibe I'm getting. That's the vibe I'm getting. A lot of people are shocked by this, and I think they should be. Mike Vrabel is a top 10 head coach in the league. Let's get no questions about it. Tennessee fans, if you go into Tennessee Titans Twitter, Tennessee Titans Facebook, Reddit, whatever, you're going to see a lot of guys like, oh, a lot of us are treating this guy like he's a 2-time Super Bowl winner and he made the playoffs. No. You are doing that because you don't want to face the reality that this dude is a great head coach. Mike Vrabel is a great head coach. He's going to be a great head coach wherever he goes. Now, he was the favorite to land the Patriot job, and we'll talk about that in a second. But he's a sought-after guy. I know, as sports fans in general, it's not just Tennessee Titans fans, sports fans in general, once a guy starts losing favor with you, you forget everything he did well. Everything he did well. That's what Tennessee Titans fans are doing with Mike Vrabel. And while I've said this on Twitter, I've said this on TikTok, while I don't agree with the move, while I'm not a fan of Amy Adams Strunk, not a fan at all, I'm a Titans fan. I'm a Titans fan first. If I don't like people in the front office, if I don't like who's coaching the team, if I don't like some players on the team, I don't care. Well, I do care, but I'm still going to show up every Sunday. Still going to convince myself that we're Super Bowl contenders. Still going to convince myself that we're going to become a dynasty starting next year, starting in 2024. So that's my mindset. I'm a fan of this team. It is my favorite sports team, point blank, period. And sometimes I don't show it. Sometimes I'm hard on this team, but at the end of the day, I'm a Titans fan. I'm going to be a Titans fan until I die, until I'm in the ground. And nothing, not a coaching fire, not an ownership change, nothing will change that. Unless the Titans move out of Tennessee, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. Overall, I think firing Mike Vrabel is a mistake. I hope that we get someone good. I hear that the Titans are really favoring guys like Ben Johnson, which everybody's going to try to get Ben Johnson. Antonio Pierce, we interviewed Antonio Pierce, which is funny to me because Antonio Pierce is a defensive head coach, which has the reputation of building a great culture and the players will die for. Kind of like Mike Vrabel. But whatever. I just hope we hire someone good. And I hope that Rand Carthen builds a good football team. I don't hate Rand Carthen. I want to make that clear. I think Rand Carthen is doing good things for the Tennessee Titans. If you don't know, that's the GM of the Titans. I think Rand Carthen is doing a good job. I don't trust the ownership, and I don't like the ownership. I think the owner, Amy Adams Strunk, AAS, I think she makes very emotionally charged decisions, and I really didn't like, and you guys might be on my side with this, even if you're not Titans fans. She fired Mike Vrabel. Rand Carthen did not fire Mike Vrabel. She fired Mike Vrabel. And what did she do? She sent Rand Carthen to talk to the media about the firing. And then she had an interview with the Titans website about the media, about the firing. She did not face any pressure. She did not face any questions. She sent Rand Carthen to deal with that. I don't like that. She seems a little weak-minded, and I'm really not trying to be overly disrespectful, but she seems a little weak-minded, and she seems like she makes very emotionally charged decisions, and that's not a good way to run a football team. That does not put that does not put faith in my eyes for her in the slightest. And from what I know, Rand Carthen is in charge of hiring the head coach. From what I know. But then again, from what we knew, Mike Vrabel was heavily in charge of making personnel decisions. And apparently that wasn't true. So who knows? I just gonna show up on Sunday and hope that a good product is put on the field. That's all I can hope for. I'm running this a little later than I wanted to, so we're gonna try to knock these out quick. But the two biggest names: Bill Belichick retired from the New England Patriots, or he's out. Apparently, he's in the coaching market, which he will be sought after. But as I've said when I've talked about this, Bill Belichick is in his 70s, and he said a couple times that he does not want to be coaching into his 70s. Kind of wants to enjoy retirement, which I would believe that. But if that was the case, I don't understand why he wouldn't just retire, and like why he would get fired instead of just retiring. So we'll see what happens. But the coach that was elevated to be the Patriots head coach is Gerard Mayo, former linebacker, former great linebacker for the New England Patriots for a while. Now apparently in Gerard Mayo's contract, because this didn't come out of nowhere. This isn't like a Jeff Saturday situation, right? Gerard Mayo was on the Patriots coaching staff for a while, and apparently in his contract, and this is something I've heard, not something I've fully checked as solid, like rock hard, you know, solid fact, is in his contract. Bill Belichick wanted him as the successor to Bill Belichick, which means a lot coming from one of the greatest coaches of all time. Of course, him being the GOAT is debatable, but one of the greatest coaches of all time saying this is the guy that should follow me. Now, I don't know much to say about it. I don't know Gerard Mayo's history as a coach. Don't know how good he is. He was a phenomenal linebacker, so I'm sure he knows defense very, very well. So we'll see how it works out. But with Bill Belichick, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Again, I think he retires, but then again, why would he just not retire as a Patriot instead of just getting fired? So we'll see. It's an interesting thing to keep up with. Now, Nick Saban. Nick Saban retired. And I think this was a big shock to a lot of people. Then again, his Football Life documentary came out. He was doing a lot more media stuff. So it was in the realm of like 3-4 years where Nick Saban would finally be retiring from college football. And he is officially retired as the greatest college football head coach of all time. The greatest, point blank, period. And an Alabama fan really put it well. And I thought this to myself for a while now. Alabama got real lucky where two out of the top three coaches, two of pretty much the top two coaches in college football history, Bear Bryant and Nick Saban, both coached at the University of Alabama. Both had their most successful and most well-known stints at the University of Alabama. Now, like I said in the opening, I made a video this morning talking about some of the candidates that were being talked about when it comes to Alabama. Some of those guys were Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, Mike Norvell, Lane Kiffin, Dabo Sweeney, Kalen DeBoer. I think there was one more that I am missing that was in my video, but I said the least likely was probably Dan Lanning. And from like least likely to most likely, I said Lanning, Sark, DeBoer, Dabo, Norvell, Lane Kiffin. I thought Lane Kiffin, if they wanted a Saban guy, I figured they'd probably go get Lane Kiffin. But Alabama, the University of Alabama has hired Kalen DeBoer as their new head coach. And I had Kalen DeBoer in kind of the middle. Kalen DeBoer arrived at Washington in 2022, coming off of a head coaching stint at Fresno State. And I thought that Kalen DeBoer was building something great in Washington. And even though he was losing a lot of talent in the draft, MPJ, Rome Odunze, I believe, I think Jalen McMillan is committing. I don't think that's been officially announced, but there's rumors he will. That edge rusher, their phenomenal edge rusher, is committing. He's losing a lot of talent, but it was a great program up there. He's a great head coach. I thought he was going to stay there. And that's why I didn't have him high up on the list of like, oh, this is probably going to happen. But it happened, which he's a great head coach and he has a talent in Jalen Milroe that can be Heisman level talent. Jalen Milroe definitely has the tools to be a Heisman candidate in, a year or two. And having Kalen DeBoer is definitely going to help him out. But I don't understand why you would go from Washington, who isn't a real historic program, and you're building a great team, and you were just in the national championship, and you're a constant contender. And yeah, you're moving to the Big Ten now, and the Pac-12 isn't really a thing, but it's a much less tough conference than the SEC. I know we like to rag on the SEC, but the Big Ten is pretty much Michigan, Ohio State, and a bunch of guys. Yeah, Penn State's okay. Yeah, Wisconsin and Minnesota have their, years every now and then, but outside of Michigan and Ohio State, there's no really like national contenders. Now you're moving to Alabama. You're having to try your hardest to get out of the shadow of Nick Saban, which is going to be almost impossible because he is the greatest head coach of all time. I don't know. It's a bad situation. It seems like a bad situation that Kalen DeBoer's put himself in. I hope he succeeds. I like Kalen DeBoer. I like what he can do. He's a great recruiter. Knows how to work with the transfer portal, which is very important nowadays. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And that's it with all the coaching hires. Let me know some that I missed. I'm probably going to, again, upload this and another guy's going to come out and I'm going to hit my desk because I put this out a little later. But let me know who I missed. Let me know what y'all thought. Tweet at me, TikToks, emails, all in the description. And if you're patient enough, it'll be at the end of the episode. But now, let's get into the prediction part of Jackie Boy Predicts. Obviously, NFL Wildcard weekend. The NFL playoffs are here. Hyped up, excited, a little sad that we only got a month left of NFL football. Of course, we got the United Football League. We'll have an episode telling you everything you need to know about the United Football League. Gonna check it out. Let me know if you're gonna check it out. But Wildcard weekend is here. We got some interesting matchups, and let's get into it. And we're just gonna go in chronological order from how I have them labeled. So we got the Browns and Texans. The Cleveland Browns going to Houston, and there's a couple things to know. The Texans are a very young Texans team. They're coached very well, and they're very balanced. They have a top 5 offense in the league when CJ Stroud is healthy. I believe Nico Collins is going to be back. Of course, they got who's their other guy? Who's the other guy? Who's the other guy? Who's the other guy? I know they got great tight end play. Of course, they got Dameon Pierce, who's still doing good on the ground. The offensive line is nothing to sniff. Nico Collins, and who's the other guy? It was the guy that everybody was like, oh, this guy's like a sleeper. I'm going to hate myself because he torched the Titans. Whatever. Nico Collins, I might blurt it out at the end of the episode. That's going to annoy me. But one thing to know, Cleveland Browns have one of the greatest playoff quarterbacks in history, period. And that is Joe Flacco having his little renaissance. And what's going to happen? Because this Texans defense is a good young defense. It's not great. It's very middle of the pack. But middle of the pack is a good defense. So what's going to happen? Does Amari Cooper go off? Does Jerome Ford go off? Got, Kamara. What? Kareem Hunt in the backfield. You got still an all-pro at pretty much every position on that offensive line. Defensive line is scary. All around that Browns defense is scary. I think the Browns pull this out. I don't think it's that much of a upset. The only upset would be, a lower seed being a higher seed. But the Texans are a young team. Joe Flacco's been there before. The Browns have been in the playoffs before. The Texans had a great season. D'Amico Ryans is coach of the year, in my opinion, which, by the way, awards will be coming out the week before the Super Bowl, I will, give my award predictions. But I think the Browns pull this out against the Texans. Next, we got the Dolphins going to Kansas City. And the big thing everybody's talking about is the weather. It is going to be very, very cold. And in history, cold weather and explosive down the field offense do not mix very well unless you continually play in the cold weather like the Kansas City Chiefs. This game is going to be decided on the better defense and the better run game. And that does not completely count out the Dolphins. Yes, their defense isn't great, but it's a good defense, and they can run the ball very well. Let's not forget that. Devon A. Chain and Raheem Mostert have put on, and I might be mispronouncing both their names. You can correct me, however. They can run the ball. Let's not get it twisted. They can run the ball. But I'm sorry, I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in Arrowhead in the playoffs. I'm just not. Dolphins had a great season. It was a great run, but I think it ends in Arrowhead this Sunday. Next, we have the Steelers going to Buffalo. And I didn't realize about the Bills. They're coming off of 5 straight wins. 5 straight wins. Now, some of them close, some a lot closer than they probably should be. 27-23 over the Patriots. But in that stretch of 5 games, they've beaten 3 playoff teams. They've beaten the Chiefs, they've beaten the Dolphins, and they've beaten the Cowboys. They beat the Dolphins for an AFC East title. This Bills team is getting hot. They are getting hot at just the right time. Not only are they getting hot, now they have a bona fide tune-up game. This Pittsburgh Steelers game for the Buffalo Bills. And I have a lot of people that I follow on TikTok and are mutuals with me that are our Steelers fans, and I'm sorry to say this. This is a tune-up game for the Buffalo Bills, especially without TJ Watt. And we see how much worse that Steelers defense is without TJ Watt. This is a tune-up game for the Buffalo Bills. I expect the Buffalo Bills to demolish the Steelers. Next, we have the Packers and the Cowboys. For Cowboys fans, I know what you're saying. My thing is lagging, and I hope that it did not cut out a lot, if it did cut out at all. But I know what Cowboys fans are saying. Why has it got to be the Packers? Why does it have to be the Packers? Let me tell you something. This year is different. And I'm trying to convince myself of this, even though I'm not a Cowboys fan. This should be the year where the Cowboys start breaking down all of those, all those monkeys that have been on their back, right? All the monkeys. Falling apart late in the season when you have a great team going. Choking in the playoffs, especially when it comes to against the Packers. No, it wasn't a catch. The Cowboys have been dominant at home. The Cowboys have not lost at home. They are coming off winning the NFC East title. I think the Cowboys win this. I think the Cowboys should win this. But again, it is the Packers. Weird mojo happens in this matchup. But I think the Cowboys break that stigma, get that monkey off their back, beating the Packers in Jerry's World this weekend. Next, we have the Rams and the Lions. Now, next to the Browns and Texans, this is one of the most intriguing matchups of the weekend. Of course, you got the storyline of Stafford returning to Detroit, biggest stage. You got Dan Campbell, I believe, talking about how he doesn't want to see Matthew Stafford jersey in Ford Field this weekend. One thing you really need to focus on. The Lions have the second best offensive line in the league, according to PFF. So take that with a grain of salt. Detroit Lions have the second best offensive line in the league. And that Rams defense is not a great defense. Not a great defense. Not a lot of guys that can keep up with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not a lot of guys that can keep up with a Josh Reynolds. Now, Sam Laporta apparently going to be out. But Jahmyr Gibbs has come into his own. You still got David Montgomery. That 1-2 in the backfield is deadly. And for the Rams, it really is all about, can you keep the Lions defensive line, the Lions pass rush, away from Matthew Stafford? Can you keep it away from Matthew Stafford? And I think they can. I think the Rams go into Detroit, and I think they upset the Detroit Lions. I think the Rams are a little hot right now. The Rams sneaked into the playoffs, and I think they beat the Lions, a less experienced Lions team, because this Rams team, while not having a lot of the pieces they had when they went to the Super Bowl and they won the Super Bowl, still have some of those pieces. And that Rams offense can be very explosive. And I think I'm really betting on the Rams offense scoring 30-plus points. Again, very possible. So I'm taking the Rams over the Lions and a little bit of an upset. Now, the Eagles and Buccaneers is interesting only because we don't know who's playing quarterback and we don't know about A.J. Brown. As I'm recording this, Jalen still has not thrown a football since dislocating his finger against the Giants, and A.J. Brown is still not practicing. But you remember, Marcus Mariota has playoff experience. Marcus Mariota, most well known in the playoffs, coming back against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead by 13 points. 13 points in the second half. Marcus Mariota led the Tennessee Titans past the Kansas City Chiefs, only to get destroyed by the Patriots the next week. But Marcus Mariota has been in the playoffs. Marcus Mariota has won playoff games. Now, you can't say it's a little Titans bias that I'm talking so highly of Marcus Mariota, but it's just the facts. Marcus Mariota has been in the playoff games. Marcus Mariota has won playoff games, and this is still a good Eagles team. Not having AJ is going to affect them, absolutely. But you still have a pretty good receiver in Devontae Smith. You still have one of the best offensive lines in the league, and you still have a great run game. Now, that defense is not great. The defense is not great at all, but you're playing a Buccaneers offense that played Carolina for the NFC South Championship and only put up 9 points. I get that, weird stuff happens in division games. I get that. But only scoring 9 points against Carolina, that is borderline unacceptable. This news thing keeps coming across my computer screen, and it's aggravating me. But that is borderline unacceptable. I don't care that it was a division game. 9 points against the Carolina Panthers. So I do not believe in this Buccaneers team. I love the Baker story. I don't like Todd Bowles as the head coach. I think this Buccaneers team is a good team. But even without Jalen Hurts, I expect the Philadelphia Eagles to pull that one out. Now, that's the podcast. That's the podcast Jackie Boy Predicts. As always, I will come back on Tuesday to talk about what happened, Wildcard weekend, and whatever else sports stories that catch my eye. Hope you enjoyed a little bit longer. I know. I hope it was okay. Hope the listening experience was decent. I love y'all, of course. If you want to keep up with me, follow me on Twitter at JJuster615. Follow the show's Twitter at Jackie's Show. That is one little S and one big S in the middle. Follow me daily TikTok takes. Try to post 3, 4, 5 videos a day on TikTok, JackieBoySports. And if you want to email me questions, comments, concerns, topics you want me to talk about, whatever you want to do, oldjackieboy1021@gmail.com. That is OLE JackieBoy1021@gmail.com. And as always, make sure you like, rate, and share the show, especially rating and especially sharing. It really, really helps me out if you really, support the show or whatever. And even if you don't listen or you think that it was stupid, just give me a rating. Please, please, please give me a rating. And make sure you tell everybody, hey, you need a sports show to listen to? Jackie's got a sports show. You should listen to that very sports show. And I thank you guys for listening to this sports show. I love you, and I'll see y'all on Tuesday. Peace.